Okay, I want to reflect on a conversation I had with new clients. And in that conversation, now it's a husband and wife, and actually they have over 30 years, each of them have over 30 years as veterinarians. So it's a very humbling experience for me, for someone with that degree of knowledge in that profession to contact us for help with training. And it's not our first vet that has contacted us, and they'll tell you that they've been taught how to treat them and not train them. So the opposite's true for me. I don't know how to treat, but the training aspect is what I can help them with. Now, in the conversation, they're having problems with inter-household aggressive behavior. And again, we're very cautious to call it a behavior rather than give the dog a title as being aggressive. However, they got two dogs that are fighting, and they brought one in after one was already established, and they're having some problems. So, like a lot of our clients, they begin with disengagement drills. So we're teaching them that upon the word no, the dog should anticipate punishment. And it's leash guidance on a prong collar. So, the way that we teach it's quite extensive, but explaining this to the client, they told us, well, everything that we've ever been told by trainers before is you reserve that word no for an emergency, and unless it's an emergency, you don't tell the dog no. And so we got talking about concepts that they learned, and particularly, what type of trainers as they were labeled, right? And so it was under the concepts of pure positive or positive reinforcement only. So a lot of that goes to ignoring behavior and only rewarding what you like. So my argument is we say no to dogs very, very often, but that is a marker. It is a marker for them to then have a behavior that follows after it, all right? So if you're only using the word no with your dog in an emergency, you could actually be naming that behavior that they are doing. And in this case, with this family, it's two dogs that are fighting. So saying the word no in the middle of a fight is marking that behavior of fighting. And then you become frustrated and you begin to yell the word no. So you are enforcing, right, and labeling that behavior over and over and over by screaming the word no. Now, they don't know to disengage, and they haven't been taught patterns of movement. What we teach is patterns of movement. The dog is expected to disengage, it's expected to move away from an object, move away from a person, a dog, but it must go the opposite direction. And that's how I teach patterns of movement. If you've never taught the dog what to do when you say the word no, because under those philosophies of positive reinforcement only, you're not allowed to say the word no unless it's an emergency. The dog doesn't know what to do. So as behavior is being repeated, okay, the dogs fight more and more often, and the owners see that it's about to begin. They still haven't taught the dog how to disengage, but they are now yelling the word no when they've named the behavior of fighting as no. So if you look back at that, they are actually now commanding the dogs to fight because they have never been taught how to disengage with movement patterns away from something, right? And you have to repeat this, so the dog understands, I've got to go the opposite way, I have to completely leave it alone. But so now they see a fight about to start. They likely have a bit of anxiety of their own because here the dogs are about to be hurt. So they're yelling the word no, commanding the dogs to fight. So in a nutshell, you have to teach patterns. The dog must understand with an audible cue, that's your marker training, right? You're going to say the word no. The dog should anticipate punishment. But the punishment is guidance with a prong collar, right? Continue to move forward in that direction is uncomfortable. And then also remote collar. So both of those uncomfortable sensations, and I mean, it can be very subtle. It can be something only to interrupt behavior. But you've shown them through minimal distractions in environments that are very calm, the pattern of movement. No, guidance opposite direction. Repeat, 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 repeat. And ultimately, just saying the word no, the dog turns around and goes the other way. And actually what they were doing, remember, they were naming a behavior when it was happening. And then when they thought that same behavior of the fight was about to happen, they would say the word no, now commanding the dogs to go and do it. So have to be really, really careful with it. And, to give them credit, both of them have a lot of education. They have over 30 years each in the veterinarian field. But somewhere along the line, they were taught through the feel-good side of dog training, which is positive reinforcement is the only way. So if you followed us before, if you're a patron, if you're an in-person client, there are 4 quadrants to operant conditioning, not one. All right, this is not a new concept. You have punishment to discourage, you have reinforcement to encourage, right? The positive part is not good. The positive part is adding or giving something, all right? Negative reinforcement is just as important as positive reinforcement. But when people hear negative, they think it's bad, okay? Negative is actually removing something that's uncomfortable, right? So if a prong collar is uncomfortable, but now the leash is loose and it's comfortable again, that is your negative reinforcement. That should be something that every client, every dog owner strives to achieve, is a nice loose leash where it's not giving punishment, you're not being pulled down the road. And then it goes back to equipment as well. Some equipment they had never used before or very minimally leading up to training was prong collar. Had almost no experience with remote collar. We really prefer that everybody gets started from the very beginning with us with that equipment to introduce it correctly. One of the things that they had mentioned to us was in preparation for starting with us, they had bought some of the equipment beforehand and had done a little bit of experimenting. We really don't recommend that. Very luckily, they understood that it just wasn't working for them. And again, it's not about pressing the button and thinking it gets instant results. You have to teach the dog through patterns of movement that turning around and going the opposite direction makes a remote collar turn off. Leash is loose, prong collar is now comfortable. So just pressing the button and they weren't getting results. Ultimately, what do they do? They turn the dial way up. This is generally speaking as high as it'll go. They press the button, the dog does a backflip, and then it tugs on your heartstrings because you've inflicted something very uncomfortable and very painful, but you never really taught the dog what you want it to do instead. So absolutely have to do it right. I'm really happy to be working with them because I think that we can learn a lot from each other. The treatment side, the training side, and they're still very much involved and always will be, whether it's consulting or actually still practicing, but promoting all 4 quadrants of operant conditioning. Don't be afraid to tell your dog no. Tell it no, show it what you want it to do instead, and repeat all of that, right? Remember, the marker of no can be anything. You can say drop it, leave it. I joke with clients, I say, you can say marshmallow if you want, but when the dog hears a particular word, it should anticipate something after. Marshmallow can be a symbol for reinforcement about to come, but the common language, no, good, yes, and you have to show them how to do it. If you are teaching a dog to sit, you manipulate them into a sit with a touch in the rear end, and a lift of the chin. Then you say sit, you're naming the position. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Then you can command them to that position. So if you're naming the fight with no because you've never said it before, then when you say no thinking they might fight, you're commanding them to go do that. So something to consider. We're going to keep working with them. We're a few lessons in now. But just something to reflect on, and they're patrons as well. So if they look over this, your experience is going to help all of our clients. Anybody who sees this, it's just something to reflect on how something very simple with the greatest intent has actually created some problems. So something to consider.